I found a few attractive characters back in the summer of 2020 that I wasn't aware of. And I didn't know these kinds of people existed because I didn't look at the social media hierarchies and social media economy. I use social media to get leads. And I was pretty good at it. And I used LinkedIn kind of like a lead generation channel back in 2017, 2016, 2018 to build a company, and it worked and it succeeded. But what I didn't, and even earlier with what's now X, Twitter, I was trying to use it like a lead generation system, like I'd used outbound email and calls and networking. Um, and then I had an experience starting with Russell Brunson in 2020. And then I went through the cast of characters. And, if you're an entrepreneur, a coach, or service provider, you probably know some of these names. Maybe you didn't get as deep with them as I did. But Sam Ovens, Alex Hormozi, and I'm going to just talk about these three because my experience with them is many of our experiences. So this is not about them. It's about me. It's about my experience with them and sharing that. So maybe there's something helpful for you in my story. The social media influencer crowd entered my field of vision for the first time. I'd never seen these people before or people like them. I'd never paid any attention to this stuff. Social media was a lead generation tool to support my business interests, and it worked. It plugged in easily, and I stayed ahead of those trends because I needed it, because I was making money and things were working. But I realized in that summer 2020, I was using it wrong, not wrong, but that it had changed. So things had been going on outside of my field of vision for years. Go back to Gary Vee on Twitter, and I won't go through the whole history, but a lot of you know it. And we're part of it and pioneering in it. And in 2020, I caught up and I thought, I got to do this because this is what's next. And I need to be a part of what's next. And then I realized in early 2023, it's not what's next, it's what's done for me, not for you. If you want to do that and play the hierarchy game, it's a game. Alex Hormozi calls it the game. It's a hierarchy game. It's how do I climb the hierarchy, get an audience, know how to convert them through a process into customers that pay me and win. That's the game. And he calls it the game. And that's what they're teaching. And I'm going to go through really quickly my experience with these three and why I don't do it anymore and what I see coming next, which is not what they're doing. So think about them as Coca-Cola and Pepsi, and think about me and what I'm talking about as 7-Up, the Uncola, the alternative to those approaches. And it is not to follow my approach. That's what the alternative is. It's to find your approach. That's the difference. The fundamental difference with what's been done with influencer marketing and hierarchies and what I learned and spent years messing around with, a couple years with Russell Brunson, Sam Ovens, and Alex Hormozi. And there's a bigger cast of characters, but I'm picking these three because they're definitely authorities and a lot of people are aware of them, but it has nothing to do with them because it has to do everything with you and me. What's next is find your own way. And I'm labeling these things to help me understand it and write protocols and playbooks for this, not based on what I did, based on what I've observed in my experiences. And I'm calling it liberation mechanics versus opinion projection. So I think of them now as opinion projectors. And I think of what I'm talking about is liberation mechanics. And how do you become a liberation mechanic? Who do you liberate first? You. That's the difference. In opinion projection, you receive an opinion from Russell, the expert secrets, .com secrets, traffic secrets. You receive an opinion from Sam Ovens, how to do sales, how to think about philosophy as applied to entrepreneurship. That's a lot of what he's teaching. Zen business. And then he moved to Skool, a community funnel to build revenue, gamification to get participation up, and ways of converting those followers into paying customers at various levels, bringing community together as a funnel, sales pipeline, because people are bonded together around things they're interested in. And that is a business strategy that works when works is defined as hitting your KPIs and moving up in the hierarchy of whatever industry you're in. And Alex Hormozi's concepts, same, around how do you play and win the game? How do you play and win the game? And what I'm saying is, for me, play my game, not theirs. That's the difference. And what I'm saying to you with the 7-Up idea is play your game, not theirs. Why? Think about why. How's it going? How's it going? That's why. Because when something gets big, it gets hard. The game gets hard. If you win the game, did you win? That's the big question. That's the biggest question of all, is did you win if you won that game? So if you move up the hierarchy and now you're on stage as an equal with these people, what did you win? So for some people, they won. So having the money in the bank is all they want. And they're good with that. Now their opinion projector gets big. So their opinion projector is what they want. They want to be the opinion projected that everyone follows because they love feeling important, that they won. Is there anything wrong with that? No. If that's what you want. If it's not what you want, be careful. This is what happened to me. I thought that's what I wanted. I wanted to be a bigger opinion projector. And I was trying to figure out, how do I do it? That's not what I really wanted. And that's where the conflict came in. I thought I wanted to be a bigger opinion projector. So I did all Russell Brunson stuff, 30-day one funnel away challenge. I read every single book. I've got a notebook back here that's like completely filled out. I tried everything. None of it worked for me. None of it. Now, the advice from the opinion projector is, we'll work harder. So when I talk to people, they'll say, well, you'll get there. I'm like, no, I don't want to go there. That's what I realized. Not that I did it wrong. And then I did Todd Brown's stuff, who's one of Russell Brunson's mentors or their partner. I don't know how the relationship works, but they're helping each other. I know that. And I did all that stuff, that method. And I'm like, oh, this didn't work either. And then I went through the offers book from Alex Hormozi for 8 months. And I'm writing it, trying to figure it out. And I'm doing it. And I'm like, this isn't working either. That doesn't mean I didn't build an audience. That doesn't mean I didn't get some sales. That doesn't mean. And then I built a Skool community with Sam Ovens stuff because I spent $2,000 on his course. And then I looked at his mastermind and they used their sales approach on me for the mastermind. And I thought, I don't want to learn how to do that. That's not a sales approach to me that makes any sense. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And then I saw Skool in 2022, I think, towards the end of the year. And I'm like, this is good. So I started a Skool community and launched it in January of 2023 called Solopreneur Inc. Virtual Campus. We met every day in Zoom rooms. And then I had the Skool room, the courses, the whole thing. It didn't work for me. I realized early 2023, I don't want to win that game. That's why it didn't work. But I learned a lot. This whole thing cost me 150 grand over a couple of years. Now, it's more than the three of them. I could go, I could give you 50 or 60 influencers. And then I went back, opinion projectors. So I went back to the original opinion projectors. And that's, I won't get Cialdini with his book Influence. This is where they're getting all this stuff from. And then Eugene Schwartz from Beyond Advertising. And, I go on and on and on. There's a whole canon of work that led to all of this opinion projecting. And I thought, what is an opinion? It's a belief. So it's somebody who says, I did this and it worked. You can too. And then they create a pathway and they show everybody. I thought, all right, that makes sense. And then I realized it doesn't make any sense because I'm not like them. Think about this. This is common sense, but the shroud of belief around I have to get up that hierarchy has overtaken the entire world of entrepreneurship, coaching, and service providers. Now, a lot of us are freed from that, but that's liberation mechanics, is getting freed from those beliefs and opinions and not being at the mercy of the opinion projection. Freedom from that is harder than I thought. And I thought, God, I know better. I know better. It took me almost 150 grand in 3 years to realize I already did a lot of the stuff they're talking about doing when I was in my 20s, their age. I'm like, I already built a lifestyle company. I already built a virtual passive income company. I already did it. Why did I think I didn't? Because the numbers were different. So I was comparing myself to them based on the numbers. That's the hierarchy. So the opinion projector is saying, well, you got to get to 100 million or you got to get to 100 grand. Everything's measurable with KPIs. And I thought, that's comparison. That violates principles. And it's funny because at the same time, they're saying, don't compare yourself to anybody, create your own authentic character, and do this. And I did, but I'm still comparing myself. It's like one side of me is doing one thing, one side's doing the other. What's the problem? Getting to principles underneath. That's liberation mechanics. That's 7-Up. I got 7-Up. That's what I got. I got 7-Up to Coke and Pepsi. How do I do this then? I just keep doing it. That's liberation mechanics. Get your thing and keep doing it and ignore the outcomes. I was on Substack yesterday and there's all this how to succeed on Substack stuff. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then there's people who are talking about how many followers. So let's bond together, groups with under 200 followers. And I'm like, what are you doing? This is about finding your voice and communicating it. The people will show up. Don't worry about it. How to succeed on Substack is start with product. It took me, I'm like, I already know this. I've done it like that way my whole life until 2020. Why? The projections are intense. The opinion projectors in the influencer economy gave me the feeling of separation from them. They know and I don't. Why? The money. Because I wanted the money. The money to me represented freedom, satisfaction, and happiness. Because once I get the money, then I can do whatever I want. I've done whatever I wanted my entire life, whether I had money or not. I'm already there. I just didn't recognize it and claim that as my own story. I'm getting to the real point of this. Liberation mechanics is start with product, find your own story, connect into the marketplace, see what resonates for you, and then ask people what's going on with them. But don't tell them what the faster horse is going to look like because they can't understand. They're going to put you in a box of what they already know. If you're an entrepreneur and you're doing something new, they can't understand. That's why the elevator message system didn't work for me because I was doing something and experimenting with new ideas. If you're an entrepreneur, that's what it is. Being an entrepreneur is not doing best practices, following the influencers. That's not how they succeeded. They were liberation mechanics for themselves who became opinion projectors in the market because that's how it works often. That's what happens. So when somebody fixes with a result, they're done. And they say, okay, I'm there. I got my money. Now I'm going to show you how to do it. That's an error in judgment that they have. That's their error in judgment. And they're innovating and evolving themselves behind the scenes. But the money part is what we look at because in our society, there's a lot of fear because there's so much change. I have been unraveled by change my entire life and stood up to it and triumphed over it my entire life since I was 21 years old. Could even say 17. And I've always been a couple years ahead of change. And to copy somebody else and allow myself to be distorted or distracted by hierarchical thinking and obsessive focus on KPIs of any kind. People are saying, well, it's not about how many likes you get, it's about the quality of the people in your pipeline. And I'm like, it's still metrics. It's not that metrics are wrong or bad. It's don't stare at them or stare at them if you want. It's up to you. You can be a liberation mechanic and still stare at your metrics all day long. You're going to be miserable. I think I was looking at my metrics all day because I'm comparing myself. I call that putting the parking brake down when I stopped. I was like, oh, I put the parking brake down. So I'm on Substack now and I'm playing around in it. It's great. It's super cool. And I'm on Substack and I'm like, it's turning into social media combined with not marketing, but email content community and people who have a real shared desire and interest in topics. So how to succeed on Substack is not a desire for me. It's not. How to have a better entrepreneur experience, how to be with people I want to be with, how to make an impact on the world, how to help people get into their blueprint of who they really are, bring that out in the world in a way that helps them and makes an impact for them and leads to outcomes and results, of course, but on your own terms in freedom, liberation from the hierarchical thinking, from the belief systems, from the idea of, oh, try to be like Russell, Alex, or Sam. That's what I want. That's shared desire. Shared desire is permanent success because you're in your market. This is called product market fit. In Silicon Valley, they talk about this all the time. The real entrepreneurs, a lot of Silicon Valley people now are corporate entrepreneurs. They're looking at best practices. How do we make it work? What works today? What works? It's all what works. I saw that on Substack yesterday. What works? What works? What works? How do we figure out what works? That's yesterday's news. What's next? It doesn't exist yet. Where does it exist? In your imagination. That's what you're creating as an entrepreneur. You're creating what's next. That's how they did it. I watched Sam's evolution from Sudan, New York City, consulting.com, and saying, this business is crushing me. How about Zen business? He evolved into Zen business with the mastermind group, which wasn't a real mastermind. That's, I think, why it didn't work. So it's him on stage in the hierarchy teaching everybody. That's not a mastermind. A mastermind is equals bonded together around shared desire and allowing energetic power to flow through the group. That's what Napoleon Hill said. So that's this called a mastermind. It's not a mastermind what he did. And I think that's why he didn't like it. And then he closed that and started Skool and focused on it. That was after I did my Skool. And now it's blown up in the market. So it's like, oh, they won, it succeeded. And it's yay. And I look at it and I'm like, no, that's okay. That's their thing. I'm not following that. I'm going to watch it. And I'm in Russell Brunson's prime mover community. My perspective on Ayn Rand is very different than his. My understanding of what a prime mover is not the same as his. To me, it's about being a liberation mechanic. It's not about being a demonstrated success in the world through being able to be a real entrepreneur. It's about impacting the world and making a dent in the universe. That's a liberation mechanic. Where does that come from? It's inner directed. What's happening next? From my perspective, I'm not saying this is real. I'm just saying this is what I'm living with every day in my imagination, because that creative energy is just where I live. It's in an inside out job. So inside, what I see coming in the world is democratization of the prime mover concept, not elites. So with Ayn Rand, it was special people. I see it as everybody. I see it everywhere I look, everywhere. People saying, what about me? Where's my role in this? How do I survive this craziness? How do I live in this crazy society where everything costs too much money? How do I live in this place where there's no jobs left anymore, where I see everything being crushed by AI? It's great. It's great. It's freedom. Look at it as liberation opportunities. Why? Because now you don't have to work in some corporate matrix or feel like, because you don't want to have a choice. So, particularly if you get older, you're not going to want to be there unless you climb to the top of the hierarchy. That's a game. You can play that game and extract as much money from it as possible and then go live your real life. That's what people are doing. I know, because I tried that, but it didn't last for me very long, because I don't climb hierarchies. I can't do it. I've tried. I have to create my own life. It's who I am. I've been a liberation mechanic since I was a kid, 5 years old, but I didn't know what it meant because I was trying to be an opinion projector, meaning learn everything, be the smartest one in the room, tell everybody, be an expert. And somehow from doing that, I will get to the top, be the best, work the hardest, stay up latest. I've done all that, travel, go create, but it's not really what I was doing. I confused my own destination, my own destiny with hierarchical comparisons. But I've always done the liberation mechanic route my whole life, and it's always worked every time. It's worked my entire life, but I didn't see it because the hierarchy on social media is seductive. Why? The mind does it. The mind believes things that aren't true. Why? Because its job is to do that. What does my mind do? When I say mind, what am I talking about? I'm talking about my left brain thinking processor, not my being. I'm talking about my left brain thinking processor. My left brain thinking processor is looking around and saying, what's going on? And then I attach to the belief of that being real and true. There's an opinion projector field in it of hierarchical leaders that have social proof and authority using Robert Cialdini's ethical persuasion principles and tricking my mind into believing their stuff is real for me. And it's not. But that's seductive. Why? Because my mind wants to be seduced. That's its job. It's not really its job, but it's what it does. What is its real job? Scan the environment and look for flaws, form opinions with judgment, and then stop. But that's our job as liberation mechanics. Stop the mind. Don't let it be in charge. That's what screwed me up. I started believing those things as real. They're not real. It's an illusion. The idea of the hierarchy, the idea of climbing the hierarchy, winning the game is not real for me. It will never get me where I want to get. Liberation mechanics did. What is the difference between 7 Up and their Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola? What's the difference? It's that liberation mechanics leads to you finding your pathway, being a real prime mover. A real prime mover is defined by you, not the society, and not by Russell Brunson. I'm in his community, and there's some people saying, wow, this course is really hard. I'm like, because it doesn't fit you. That's why. Because he's trying to help you by giving you confidence. Once you get confidence, find your own way. What is Alex doing? He's trying to help you by giving you ideas and understandings because he's mastered business. Once you get the mastery that he's teaching, go your own way. What's Sam Ovens doing? He's trying to get you to your core of understanding the principles of how life works, which come from physics and spiritual understandings and knowing laws, laws of assumption, laws of attraction, laws of success. He's trying to get you deeper than just how to win on Facebook. That's what consulting.com was about. The problem is following him. You can't follow that stuff because it's not real. That's a hard statement. That's an opinion. It is. It's an opinion. My experience, I'm showing the difference. So, liberation mechanic, you use experience sharing, not turn off your opinion projector because it's going to create resistance because it'll trigger people because they'll say, well, I know you don't know. And then they're going to troll you. Why? Because you created the trolling environment by having a big opinion projector and attracting trolling because they're projecting based on someone saying, I know and you don't. It's that simple. And I'm looking at it and saying, how do we overcome this mess? Because it's a mess. It's destroying the world economy is based on this now. The entire world economy is based on this notion of opinion projection. And believe me, don't trust yourself. Believe me, don't trust yourself. I know. So the opinion projection, you don't have to do it. What am I doing differently? I call it experience sharing. What does that really mean? It means I know from my experience, or I observe this, or this is what I found. How do you get to that? Know your stories. When I know my stories, I spent 1 year minimum just thinking about my own life every morning on a walk, just thinking, what happened to me? How can I connect these dots together? What is my faster horse? It's Henry Ford. Henry Ford's like, I can't explain this to anybody. You can't come up with an elevator message for a faster horse, which is a car, because no one's seen one before, or they've seen it and they forgot because the beliefs take over the society. The belief of, well, it's a horse. How do you get around? Well, you get a horse or walk. Well, why do you have to use a horse? Well, it's like, what are you talking about? Because that's how else are you going to do it? Ford saw the car. There were cars, but people look at them and say, well, those are race cars and they're expensive. Well, that's not for me. That's for the rich people. And Henry Ford said, why? And then he figured it out. Well, he can't tell people while it's happening. They won't believe him. Same with Disney, same with Steve Jobs, same with Oprah. Think about Oprah. She saw it. She's like, I can do this too. And in fact, I must. The democratization of liberation mechanics to me is what's coming into the world. I see it everywhere I look. Have you noticed too? All of these people who are frustrated with the hierarchy and saying, I don't want to follow this, but they're still following it. Why? Because they don't have an alternative. That's liberation mechanics. I'm offering an alternative. I've packaged the laws and principles and mechanisms at the first principle level, at the deep level. Through my life experience, it started when I was 17 years old, when I started learning about what goes on inside me. And then my business experience from 21 years old, trying to figure out how the hell do I make a living in this place outside the hierarchy? That's all I've ever done, these two things. And the experience with Russell and Alex and Sam taught me a lot because I could see through what they were doing into the core of it. And when you see in the core of it, and you're operating from those principles, you have the opportunity